I wanted to show you guys some shorthand that a lot of options traders will use. It just makes it easier to communicate with other traders. It's not something that you have to do, but just want to make you aware of it so that if you see this either in the Facebook group or if you follow any options newsletters or any subscriptions of options traders, they will typically use some sort of shorthand to communicate their trades. It can be hard to just type out your trades, in words that everyone can understand every time you place a trade, especially if you're doing high volume trading. So a lot of traders will use shorthand to communicate their trades. It's just easier to a lot of times copy and paste that information from your trading platform into a form or into a text or email, something of that nature. But before we go into some examples, there's really four terms you need to be familiar with. And these four terms are buy to open, which is abbreviated as BTO, sell to open, STO, buy to close, BTC, and sell to close, STC. So what open and close is referring to is anytime you get into a trade, that's considered opening the trade. Whether it be you're buying a stock or you're buying an option, or if you're doing a strategy where you sell to open, like if you're shorting a stock or if you're selling a put, those are considered opening type strategies. Anytime you place a trade to get you into the trade, it's considered opening the trade. And then later on, when you're ready to get out of the trade, so if you bought a stock and you decide you want to sell that stock later, it's considered closing the trade. So we don't normally talk about buying and selling stock in those terms. We just say I bought a stock and I sold a stock. But technically, if you buy a stock, it's a buy to open. And then when you sell the stock, it's a sell to close. That's how you get out of the trade. So a buy to open would get you in, and then the sell to close would get you out of the trade. But you can actually do the reverse of that. You can sell to open to get into the trade, and then later you could buy to close to get out of the trade. And that seems a little confusing to some people because it's hard to grasp sometimes that I can sell to get into something, but with options, you can actually sell something first and then buy it later to get out. So even if you don't understand those strategies, just be aware that if you ever see STO, sell to open, just know that person is getting into the trade by selling something first. And then if they later post a BTC, buy to close, they bought that option back to get out of the trade. So let's look at a few quick examples that I've taken from other traders that I've seen post their trades. Everyone uses roughly the same lingo. You'll see some minor variations here that I just wanted to point out so you're aware of different things you may come across. So you can see on the first example here, they use the shorthand BTO, which again lets you know they're buying to open an option. The next part is the ticker symbol, and in this case, they put a hashtag in front of the symbol. So sometimes you'll see traders use a hashtag or a dollar sign to indicate that that's a ticker symbol right after that value. So this is hashtag, and then CMG is the ticker symbol. Next is your expiration. So this expired on May 4th. The strike price was 420, and C just means for a call. So if we were to write this out into a sentence, we would say that this trader bought a call on CMG expiring on May 4th for the 420 strike price. So instead of writing that out as a full sentence, we can abbreviate it and just makes it easier to communicate to other traders. On the second one, we have a STC, a sell to close, so we automatically know they're closing out a trade that they already have on. They bought an option and now they're selling to close to get out of it. It again is for CMG, and this time put a dollar sign in front instead of a hashtag. It's just again an identifier that this is a ticker symbol. For the May 4th expiration, for the 420 strike price, and it's a call. So this is really just showing you the sell trade for the trade that was bought earlier. And these next two examples I pulled from the Thinkorswim platform. So Thinkorswim, which is the platform I use, when you place a trade, they make it really easy where you can just copy that trade into your clipboard and paste it anywhere you want to. You can paste it into your email. You can paste it on Facebook. I could paste it into a text message. And so when I do that copy, this is what the paste will look like when it outputs. And I will do this sometimes again if I'm talking to another trader and I say, hey, I just placed a trade on Netflix, and they want to know, what trade did you do? I don't want to have to take the time to type out, into a sentence, this vertical credit spread that I sold on Netflix. So I would just copy from my Thinkorswim app and post that trade into a text message and expect that trader to be able to interpret my trade just from that without me having to go into a lot of detail and explanation. And I realize that can be confusing to a beginner trader, so let's talk through what this would look like from Thinkorswim. And they add some additional things here that aren't really necessary, but I want to just talk through it in case you come across it. So in Thinkorswim, they don't use the above abbreviations. In this case, it just says sell, which doesn't clearly identify, was this a sell to open or sell to close? So I don't really like the fact that it just says sell. So if I sent this to another trader, I would probably have to explain to them, this was an opening trade, or they'd have to make the assumption that this was an opening trade because I didn't explicitly specify it was a close. Because typically, if somebody says, I bought a call, you don't ask them, well, was that a buy to open or a buy to close? You just assume it was a buy to open, because when somebody says, I bought a call, you just know that was an opening. If it was a buy to close, they would typically say, I bought my call back to get out of the trade, or I closed my call by buying it back. They would usually, explicitly identify that it was a buy to close. So in this case, if you just saw sell with no other identifier, you would just make the assumption that this was a sell to open. In this case, the number of contracts are identified. In the above example, it was not. In this case, it's letting you know there was 10 contracts traded on this particular trade, and a negative sign just indicates also that it's a sell. Anytime there's a negative, or anytime you sell something, they put a negative sign in front of the number of contracts. The next piece tells you the strategy that was executed. In this case, it was a vertical spread. If it was just a call or a put, there would be no need to indicate the strategy, but since there's multiple legs to this strategy, they will spell out that this was a vertical spread. The next part is the ticker symbol, Netflix. And again, there's no identifier in front of it like it in the examples above. It just assumes that NFLX is a ticker symbol. The next piece can be a little confusing, this 100 and W. Where this comes from is, if you've ever looked in Thinkorswim at their options chain, they always give the expiration format as the day, the month, and the year. Then they will have a number in parenthesis that indicates how many days until expiration. So this option expires in 6 days. And then they have 100 there, and that really just indicates that there are 100 shares per contract, which we all know, right? One contract equals 100 shares. That's pretty basic knowledge. I'm not sure why Thinkorswim feels the need to point that out here, because again, we all know that's the case. And then they have in parentheses here that this is a weekly's expiration as opposed to a monthly. If it's a monthly, they don't put any value out beside that. So if we go back, now that helps explain what this 100 means. That 100 you will see on any trade description from Thinkorswim. It'll always have that 100 there, so you can basically just ignore that. W just indicates that it's a weekly option. Next, you have the actual expiration, and again, it's going to be in the format of the day, the month, and the year. You would have the number in parenthesis that tells you how many days to expiration. The next two values would be the two strike prices, because since we're doing a vertical spread, a spread has two legs, a short leg and a long leg. This would give you the two strike prices, a P for a put, and then in this instance, it's actually telling you the price, the credit that was received for putting on this trade. Whereas in the above two trades, it did not specify a specific price amount. So again, if we were to write this out in a sentence, it would be something to the effect of, I sold a vertical credit spread on Netflix for the May 11th expiration, strike prices at 305 and 295, and I received an 81-cent credit. So instead of having to write out that whole sentence, we can abbreviate that. And I mentioned in that it's a credit spread. I know it's a credit spread because anytime you sell something, you're going to receive a credit. So even though this doesn't tell me was this a credit or a debit, I know automatically it was a credit because of the fact it says sell. If this was a buy, I would know that this trade was a debit vertical spread. And this next example, that's what we have here. This is a buy, 10 contracts. There's a plus value in front of the 10 because it's a buy. This is a vertical spread on Google. Again, the 100 will always be there as a default for 100 shares per contract. W for weekly. This was for the May 4th, 2018 expiration, which was today. The number of days to expiration is 0 because this was today's expiration. So there's no more days left till expiration. Here are the two strike prices that make up this spread. P for put, and it was a 35-cent debit that was paid to buy this spread. And again, we don't know, was this a buy to open or buy to close? Since it's not identified, we would just have to make the assumption it was a buy to open. These next two examples, this particular trader actually specifies, instead of using the abbreviations above, will actually spell out the word opening and then indicate that it was a sell. So it would have been much easier just to put this as an STO as opposed to saying opening sold. They specify the number of contracts, a -2, again, because we're selling. The strategy was an iron condor. The ticker symbol is BA. Again, they did not identify with a hashtag or anything in front of this, so you just need to know that the ticker symbol followed after the strategy name. They let us know that these were weekly options. They specify the expiration date of April the 27th. Since it's an iron condor, iron condor has 4 legs. There's 2 legs for the call and 2 legs for the put. So they gave us what the 2 strike prices were for the call. They let us know that these were the call strike prices. Then they specified the 2 strike prices for the put. And they told us it was for a $1.22 credit. Again, the credit part is kind of redundant because the fact we know that they're selling this, we know by default that it's a credit. But they decided to go ahead and include that as well. The next one is a closing trade. So they're closing. BOT is an abbreviation you'll see for bought sometimes in a lot of trading platforms. So all BOT means is a buy. So again, they could have used the BTC abbreviation up above, buy to close, but they spelled out closing, bought, 2 contracts, has a plus sign because it's a buy. The strategy was an iron butterfly on the ticker symbol EWI. April expiration. Now notice here there was no day specified. Up above we had April 27th. They gave this specific day. Here they just gave you the month of April. Why is that? Well, for monthlies, you know that a monthly always expires on the 3rd Friday of the month. So sometimes traders won't explicitly identify what the day is. They assume you know that monthlies expire on the 3rd Friday of the month, so they just tell you it's the April expiration. So if you want to know the specific day, you would need to go look at April on the calendar and look for the 3rd Friday. So April the 6th was the 1st Friday, so the 13th is the 2nd Friday, and the 20th would be the 3rd Friday. So this expiration is the week of April the 20th. Since it's an iron butterfly, similar to an iron condor, there's 4 legs. So you would have the 2 legs for the call, the 73 and the 83. And then for the put, you'd have the 73 and 63. And it was a $3.63 debit. And again, we know it was a debit because it was a buy. They did not really have to tell us the debit part. Anytime you buy something, it's going to be for a debit. So these are just some examples. You can use your own shorthand, with different combinations of the examples you see here. But it's just good information to know, especially if you are communicating with other options traders who post trades regularly and you want to follow their trades. They may be using the shorthand, and it just will help you understand what they are doing. I put some examples of what my personal preference is based on all the above examples we saw. Um, I definitely like using the STO, BTO, BTC, STC abbreviation so that I know 100% what that trader was doing. So when I see this sell to open, I know that they were selling to get into the trade, and in this case, it's a vertical spread. So I know they're selling a vertical spread on Netflix for the May 11th expiration. Here are the two strike prices. It's a put, and they received an 81-cent credit since they're selling. I know it's a credit. I also know that since it's a credit spread, I know which strike they're selling and buying, because as a vertical spread, you're buying one leg and you're selling another leg. Well, if it's a credit spread, you're always selling the leg, for puts at least, for the higher strike price. So I would know that they're selling the 305 strike and then they're buying the 295 strike. So there's a lot of information you can glean just from this without them explicitly having to tell you, oh, I went in and bought the 305, or I went in and sold the 305 leg, and then I bought the 295 leg. I know that just from the fact that this is a credit spread. If it was a debit spread, if this was a BTO, if they were buying this spread, I would then know it's an 81-cent debit, and then I would know they're buying the 305 strike and selling the 295 strike. It would basically be the opposite of the credit spread. The next trade is a sell to open of an iron condor for Netflix May 11th. I like this structure better for an iron condor as opposed to the earlier example where they had to spell out the two strikes for the call and the two strikes for the put. You may see it in this format as well, where they just list the four strike prices in sequence, and you know that the first two strike prices are the put and the next two strike prices are for the call. There's no need to specify which strike is which. It's always listed from left to right, the two put strikes and then the two call strikes, and then the credit received, the $1.50. And I know it's a credit again because it's a sell. The next one is a buy to open. Netflix, May 11th expiration, the 320 strike. It's a call and 50 cents. So this would be just your basic call purchase, right? Someone bought a call on Netflix at the 320 strike. They paid 50 cents for it, and it's for May 11th expiration. Here's an example of a buy to close. A vertical spread on Netflix, May 11th. There's the strike prices. It's a put, 20 cents. Anytime I see a trader post a buy to close, I know they're getting out of a trade, right? So if I somehow missed their earlier trade when they actually would have done a sell to open to get in that trade, I may try to scroll back up and find where they posted the sell to open to see what they got in at. Because since they're closing it out, I know they had to have opened the trade originally. And so this is, a good indication of there's another trade that they placed before they closed it out. And you can see that this trade here is actually the closing trade for the earlier trade of this sell to open. So they put on this trade, they sold it for 81 cents, and then later on they're buying it back to get out for 20 cents. And the last one is a sell to close Netflix, May 11th, 320 strike call at $1.50. This is the close trade of this buy trade up here. So someone bought a Netflix call at 50 cents, and then they sold it later to get out at $1.50. So hopefully that clears up some of the lingo that you'll see. And again, if you want to start using the shorthand, go for it. And hopefully now people can understand what other traders are talking about. Real quickly, lastly, I just want to show some screenshots of current positions that traders may have on. So sometimes a trader may send you a screenshot of a trade that they currently have open. And sometimes it's difficult to just look at that screenshot and be able to tell, well, what did this trader actually do? If they're not communicating with you this information up here where they're telling you, they did a buy to open or a sell to open, if they're just sending you the screenshot, maybe confusion, like, well, what is this trade? And if a trader, for whatever reason, doesn't want to take the time to spell it out for you, it's kind of hard to maybe understand it. So I just want to show real quickly how to analyze a screenshot of a position that a trader may have on. You can see here the fact that there's two legs, automatically we know this is a spread. A spread has two legs, right? The fact that the expiration is the same for both of these, both have a 4/30 expiration, April 30th, I know this is a vertical spread because vertical spreads always have the same expiration date. The next thing I can see here is that there was a sell for one leg and a buy for one leg. Again, that's typical of a vertical spread. And I also can see that it's a put. So they opened a trade for a vertical spread. Well, now, okay, how do I know, was it a sell to open or was it a buy to open? Is this a credit spread or is this a debit spread? Because that makes a huge difference when, if you're trying to mimic this trader's trade, you definitely want to know, was this a credit spread or debit spread? Because that definitely can change your trade up if you put this in incorrectly. Well, you can see the two different strike prices here, the 264 and the 263. They sold the 264 strike and collected 20 cents, and then they bought the 263 for 12 cents. The fact that you're receiving more money for the sell leg than what you're paying for the buy leg means you will receive a credit because you're receiving a higher amount for the sell than the buy. So I would know that this is a credit put spread. If this was reversed, if the buy amount was higher than the sell amount, I would know it's a debit spread. So just from this one screenshot, I can already determine that this trader sold a put credit spread on SPY for the 4/30 expiration, and the credit they received would have been 8 cents, which is the difference between the two prices. One more example, this is a trade I actually put on today, and I left the ticker symbol off the screenshot, but this was on Netflix. You can see here it's for the May 11th expiration on both, so that automatically tells me it's a vertical spread. You can see there's a plus 10 and a minus 10. That means that I bought this leg and I sold this leg. So even though it doesn't explicitly say buy or sell like it did in the above screenshot, the fact that you see a plus 10, that's an indication that I bought 10 contracts. Minus 10 means that I sold 10 contracts. Here are the two strike prices, the 295 and the 305, and it was a put. You can see that on the 305 strike that I sold, I received a $1.09 credit, and that the strike price that I bought, it cost me 36 cents. The fact that the amount that I'm receiving is higher than the amount that I'm spending means that I received a credit. The difference between these two amounts would be the credit that I received. So just from this one little tiny screenshot, you should be able to determine that I sold a put credit spread on Netflix, if I'd have left the ticker symbol in here, at the 295 and the 305 strikes, and the credit that I received would have been the difference between the two, and I did 10 contracts. So if you have any questions, let me know, but hopefully that kind of clears up some of the lingo and maybe some of the screenshots you'll see of trades posted. Because again, sometimes it's just, traders want to post their trade and move on to the next trade, or get busy and don't have time to, in the moment, explain their trade. And so, this is just a way for you to hopefully be able to follow those traders and know what type of trading they're doing.